Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, my name is Addie and this is the Knits by AJ Knitting podcast and this is episode 75. I am coming to you from an incredibly wet southeast of the UK today. I don't believe we have had a day where it hasn't rained at some point in that 24-hour period since maybe the beginning of November. It has been incredibly wet. So yeah, I didn't get a dog walking montage to start the video with today because I just couldn't bear to take my camera out or my phone whilst it was so muddy. I feel like, knowing me and knowing how clumsy I am, I would have dropped my phone or my camera in the mud or something or other. So yeah, we're changing it up for the intro, which is fine. I hope you've all had a lovely couple of weeks. I hope you have had lots of crafting time. If not, then I hope you've managed to find a little bit of time here and there to get some bits done. I've got a fair bit to show you actually. I've got 2 whips and 2 finished objects. I didn't expect to have quite so many finished objects, but here we are. We have a fair bit to talk about. So I guess without any further waffle, we shall just get into it. Actually, before we start, I will tell you what I'm wearing. So this is the Salty Days sweater by Kika or Veronika Lindberg. She goes by both. And I knit this up out of Drops Lima. I'm not sure what the colourway was because I bought it a long time ago and originally used it to knit something else, and then I frogged that and I knit this. I do need to make a couple of amendments to this. I just haven't got round to it. First of all, I need to de-pill it because, oh my goodness, is this thing pilling? Which I kind of expected because I have knit a Moby sweater for my husband out of Drops Nepal, which is essentially the same yarn, just the worsted weight, whereas this is the DK weight. And that thing pills like there's no tomorrow. It just sheds everywhere. So whenever he wears it, there's like little bits of black fluff everywhere and I have to run around after him with the hoover and everything. So yeah, I didn't expect this to be much different. It does pill ever so slightly less, but it's still, it's a pilly yarn, which I kind of expected because it's quite a soft like alpaca wool blend. It's very nice next to skin. Anyway, the amendments that I need to make is that I need to redo the bind off on the sleeves. The body isn't too bad. It's still a bit tight. If I stand up, I can show you. I might have to actually stand on the chair. So you can see it sort of does this kind of pulling in effect, which actually I quite like. I don't mind it. It's fine. It kind of makes it sit nicely on my trousers and everything. So that I'm not too worried about. But the sleeves, like if I try and roll them up, they're incredibly tight. And if I try and pull them down over my hands, they're also very tight. So I think I need to redo the tubular bind off on the sleeves and just make it a little bit looser. But I knit this over a year ago now, and I knew that the bind off on the sleeves was too tight then, and I still haven't done it. So maybe I will eventually get round to doing it, but not yet. So it's obviously not bothering me that much, otherwise I probably wouldn't wear this quite as much, and I do wear this fairly often. So yeah, that is my Salty Days sweater. I knit up size 1. I wear it quite often. It needs a de-pill. This, yeah, that's that. But yeah, now that we've got what I'm wearing out of the way, I feel a bit rusty today. It feels like a long time since I filmed one of these, wherein it really hasn't. But yeah, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into finished objects. So I have 2 finished objects to talk about today. The first one being my Advent socks. And first of all, I wanted to say a massive thank you to anybody who commented or sent me a message or got in contact with me through whichever method you did, to give me some advice on what to do about these. So these are the socks that I was knitting with my self-striping Advent from Spin and Blether. I did a 64 stitch vanilla sock. I did it toe up, and because I wanted to include as many stripes as I could with it still being a comfortable length for me, these are a lot longer than other socks that I have knit, and because I was doing it toe up, it meant that the last thing I was doing was the bind off, and I did the ribbing and the bind off the first time and it was just too tight. So I had to go back and redo that on sock 1, and I don't think I'd even put the heel in on sock 2 yet. So I have obviously now done that since these are a finished object, and this is what they look like. These are just so much fun. I absolutely love how this yarn has knit up. I think the colours are really, really happy and joyful and just exactly what you need now that we're into the kind of bleak midwinter, especially here where we're kind of, apparently we're stuck in a weather system here in the UK where we just have a lot of rain, like more rain than we usually get. Like I say, it's just not stopped raining. I think it's rained every single day since November. It's just very, very wet and very, very muddy. So a nice pair of colourful socks is definitely what we need. So yeah, like I say, I started at the toe. I did I think it's called a Turkish cast on. It's the one that's in the Curio socks by Andrea Mowry. So I did that cast on, and then I increased up to 64 stitches, and then I knit the foot, and then I used the toe pattern from this book here, the Colourwork Socks book by Charming Colourwork Socks book by Charlotte Stone. It's my go-to short row heel. I absolutely love it. I think it fits my foot really well. So yeah, that's what I did, and I did that in the undyed skein, and then I carried on knitting and did the leg, and then what I finally settled on doing was doing the tab cuff from Summer Lee's Totally Rad ribbed socks, and it's worked out really, really well. So I essentially just knit that cuff but in reverse, because those are cuff down and these are toe up, and then I just did my usual like pick up a stitch from the bottom row and knit it together and cast it off like I do when I do a picked up neckband. And these have got quite a lot more stretch at the top. I don't expect them to stay up. I expect them to be slouchy socks, but that's kind of what I went into this with the idea of these being. So I'm very happy with how they looked. I do have one small complaint about these, and that is the fact that I've had a little bit of dye bleeding onto the undyed, which I guess was probably to be expected with it being undyed and these being very bright colours. But I don't know if you can see, I've got a bit here on this heel, and I think there's a little bit here just after this orange stripe, which you might not be able to see on camera, but you can see. Oh, and there's a bit of blue on the toe down here and green on the heel. It doesn't bother me too much because, to be perfectly honest, they're just socks. But yeah, it's just something to be aware of. I wasn't really expecting these to bleed, but they did bleed a little bit, which is like, I'm not that fussed, but it is kind of a little bit disappointing. But yeah, so I obviously did sock one, found that it fit okay, and then I did the heel and finished the leg on sock two. These absolutely flew by. I knit the foot on small circulars, and then I did the leg on magic loop just because I wanted to be able to try them on more. And then I did the second one the same, just to make sure that there weren't any gauge discrepancies or anything between me knitting small circumference and me knitting magic loop. And actually, knitting the magic loop just made them feel like they were going even faster, because it just felt like the rounds were going a bit quicker because it's much faster to get across the needle, and I kind of noticed how many rounds I was actually managing to get done in a short period of time. So yeah, it was quite nice to knit a sock magic loop because I don't often do it anymore. I usually just use my like little 9-inch circulars from Chalgu. So yes, those are my Advent socks, and I'm really looking forward to being able to get on and wear these now. I finished these a couple of days ago, and well, no, over a week ago now, and they've been sitting so that I can show them to you without them being a bit funky after me having worn them a couple of times. So yeah, these are just bringing me so much joy, and I'm really, really looking forward to being able to wear them. So I cast these on December the 1st, and I cast them off on February the 3rd. So these took me a grand total of 65 days to knit. I do have a fair bit of the yarn left over, so I think I might try and knit up another pair of socks, possibly for my husband, because he wouldn't want them anywhere near as long as this. I don't have any of the undyed left. I'd have to use a different colour for heel, cuff and toes. but I don't think he would want white contrast on them anyway, so that works out perfectly fine. So yeah, I might make him some matching socks, and then maybe at Christmas we can both wear them. And cost-wise for these, the yarn cost me £49, and I didn't pay anything for the pattern because it was my like sock recipe that I have like self-drafted. So the grand total for this pair of socks was £49, which is fairly pricey, but to be honest, if I managed to cut that in half by making another pair of socks, then that's quite nice. Also, I really appreciate the amount of work that goes into making a self-striping yarn. I'm not 100% sure on the process, but I have heard that it's a lot more in-depth than just dyeing like hand-dyed yarn. So yeah, I feel like it was totally worth it, and I really, really enjoyed this advent. I think I might pick it up again for next year and have another pair of beautifully colourful self-striping socks if Spin and Blether do it again for 2026. So that was my first finished object, and the second finished object I have is another fairly small project that you guys haven't seen before. So I cast this off, knit it, and finished it in the time between the last two podcasts, which is quite exciting. I've definitely really been leaning into this kind of more monogamous way of knitting. Even though I do tend to have two projects on the go at once. I have one small project and one large project, but it is really helping me to get through things. Like, I think these are my second and third finished objects of the year already, and we're only in like the first couple of weeks of February. So yeah, I think it's really helping to kind of keep me on track with actually finishing things. And the fact that I've already finished a like men's fingering weight jumper just brings me so much joy. So yeah, finished object number 2. Have the last sip of my tea first. Is a pair of gloves for my husband. I have been saying I was going to knit these gloves for maybe like a good year or so. I picked up the yarn for these at East Anglia Yarn Festival last year, so maybe not a full year. And these were based off of a pair of fingerless gloves that I made for my husband. It must have been the year before. Perhaps I made those in 2024. But yeah, I made him a pair of fingerless gloves. I used Aimee Sher's Claras Playtime mittens pattern because I'd knit up a couple of pairs of convertible mittens with that pattern, and I really liked the way that they fit, and I liked the way the pattern was written and everything. So I then decided to adapt it to make a pair of fingerless gloves. And then my husband said that he would like a pair of full-length gloves to keep his fingers warm when we're walking the dogs in the colder weather. And so I have now knit him up a full pair of gloves. And essentially I just used the same pattern and all of my notes from that pattern to adapt my fingerless gloves to be full finger gloves. So this is what they look like. They're not particularly interesting. He just wanted a pair of like very dark grey, almost black gloves. And the yarn that I used was this BFL DK from Needle and Thread. We picked up the yarn whilst we were at, like I say, East Anglia Yarn Festival last year. It's a 100% non-superwash blue-faced Leicester, and it's lovely, sort of very dark, sort of bluish toned grey, almost black. It doesn't have a colour name. The ball band didn't have a colour name on it when I picked it up, but it is a really lovely colour. It's very kind of like, it's got really nice depth to it. Like, you can definitely see the stitch definition really nicely, and it's got a bit of sort of variation in there as well. So yeah, I really like the colour of them. I think they've worked out really, really nicely. I think they're going to be a really lovely sort of versatile pair of gloves for him. So I used the size adult small, and I used a 3mm needle for all of my like ribbing, and I used a 3.5 for the rest of the gloves. And so essentially I followed the pattern for the mittens all the way up until the thumb split, and then I went and did my own thing. I didn't even finish the I didn't actually reference the pattern for the thumb. I kind of just did my own thing, really. because by the time I'd gotten back to doing the thumb after doing the fingers, I just couldn't be bothered to get my laptop out and look at the pattern again. So yeah, I've got 5 centimetres of rib, and then I did all of the increases and everything to pattern, and then I did 4 extra rounds after the increases before the thumb split, just to add a little bit more length, because my husband, he doesn't have particularly wide hands, but he does have much longer hands than what the pattern is written for the adult small, so I had to add in a bit of length there. And then I split for thumb, and I had to add in 12 rounds for the rest of the palm just to get the full length before I then split for the fingers. And then, so to do the fingers, I used the stitch count that I had already for the hand that was in the pattern, but I essentially split those stitches into 4, and I used the backwards loop cast on to cast on 3 extra stitches per finger. So I used, I think it was I can't remember how many, but I used some stitches from the front and the back, because you have it, I was knitting these on magic loop, so I had obviously my front needle, my back needle, so I grabbed some stitches from the front, stitches from the back, cast on 3 stitches in the middle, and then essentially I just knit to the length that I needed to for my husband's finger, and then I just knit 2 together around and then thread the needle through and pulled it tight like you would with a hat. And I did that for each finger, so each one is a different length, because I was just essentially getting my husband to try these on as I knit each finger, and just knitting to the length that we needed. I did make notes of how long I needed them all to be, so then I didn't have to do that for the second one, because I feel like that would have been really annoying. And then I did the same thing for the thumb as well, but I did pick up an extra 2 stitches for the thumb and then decrease them out so that I didn't get any holes when I did the pickup, like you would do when you're picking up stitches to knit the underarm for a raglan. So yeah, I think they've worked out really nicely. I think they're a really nice shape. They fit him absolutely perfectly. I have now washed and blocked them as well, and I really didn't use very much yarn at all. So I used 65 grams of the 100 gram skein, which works out as about 146.25 meters. So yeah, not a huge amount of yarn. I've got obviously a fair amount left. So yeah, I'm considering casting on a pair of fingerless mittens for myself in this yarn, because it's a bit darker, and my Pioneer mitts are starting to be a little bit grubby from where I walk the dogs, and I have to sort of pick up mucky leads every now and then from where, especially when we use the long line for our younger dog, when we're doing some recall training and everything, or when we're walking through the farms and stuff, I tend to keep him on the long line still, and so if I ever have to pick that up when I'm walking him back again and using it just as a standard lead, my Pioneer mitts are just getting a bit mucky, so I would quite like to knit a darker pair that aren't going to show the dirt as much and aren't going to get... The thing is, I've got to the point now where I wash my Pioneer mitts and it's getting really hard to get any staining out of them, so I think if I have a darker pair then that won't matter quite so much. So I think I might cast on a pair of fingerless mitts for myself out of this yarn. I'm pretty sure that, I think, what is this, 35 grams? I'm pretty sure that should be enough. I only want a pair of short ones, so, and I only have small hands. So yeah, that's probably what I'm going to use the leftovers of that for. But yeah, these didn't take me any time at all, really. I cast them on the 26th of January, and I cast them off on the 8th of February, so they took me a grand total of 14 days to knit. And I have not done costings for these. Let me just look it up. Okay, so the pattern cost £4.38, and I think the yarn cost me roughly about £20. Their shop is not online at the moment, and so I've not really been able to double check what the pricing was, but I think it was about £20 a skein. So I'm going to say that the cost for these gloves was about £24.38. However, I have made some form of Claras Playtime mittens 4 times now? Yeah, I think 4 times. I've definitely made a pair for my daughter, I've made a pair for myself, and then I used them for my husband's fingerless gloves, and now these ones. So yeah, this is the 4th time I've used this pattern, and yeah, I would definitely use it again for another pair of fingerless mittens, or for gloves or just standard mittens. It's a really, really good pattern. It's got so many different sizes and yeah, so many different alterations that you can do to make them fit whatever need you have. So yeah, I would definitely recommend the pattern, and I would also recommend the yarn. It's really, really lovely, but like I say, their shop is out of action at the moment, so hopefully they do come back because really lovely yarn. So yeah, that was all of my finished objects. Now we are into my whips, and the first whip I have to talk about is my Kintra Sweater. This is a pattern by Rebecca Clow, or the Crayobear, and I am knitting this up out of my Advent from last year. It was the, oh, I've got the card here. It was the Lost Wood Advent from Loom. Absolutely love this Advent. I got it on the merino silk cashmere base. I think it's 70% alpaca, 20% silk, 10% cashmere. No, not merino silk cashmere, alpaca silk cashmere. And oh, it's just the most beautifully luxurious yarn. So I got 2 of the main skein, and then I obviously got 12 mini skeins because it was a 12-day Advent. I would definitely recommend this Advent, Loom for Advents. I think this is probably one of my favourite ones so far. I've only had 3 daily Advents, but actually I really enjoyed just having a 12-day Advent this year, and it's just absolutely stunning. I really, really, really loved it. All of the colours were very much my kind of colour scheme. I really, really love it. So yeah, this is living in my Rosie Caldwell quilted bucket bag? Quilted drawstring bucket bag? Yeah, the one that I made with the star quilt blocks on. And it's actually really come in handy for this project, because when I was doing the colourwork yoke, this bag has got pockets that go all the way around. So I put one colour in this pocket, and then I put the other colour that I was using, because it's 2-colour colourwork, I would put the other colour that I was using in the other pocket, and I just twisted the bag when I needed to twist to untangle the yarns, and it worked really, really well. It kept them separate and meant that they didn't get tangled and everything. It made it really easy to then put the project down, because I would then have the yarn in each pocket, and because they're mini skeins, they sat really nicely in those pockets, and then I would just put the project in the middle, and they never got tangled. So I never had to do any yarn management or anything. I could just pick it up, put it down, and it was great. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you're looking for a project bag pattern to make, this is really handy for colourwork. But yeah, I will show you the progress that I've made now. So I don't think I've been knitting on this quite as much as I thought I had. I really got into the whole finishing my husband's my socks and finishing my husband's gloves. So this has had a fair bit of work, but not as much as I thought I would put in on it. And so, which way around does this go? This way. So this is what we're looking like. I will get this on some tubing so that you can see what it looks like on as well. So I've finished the yoke, and I am into the body. I've split for sleeves. So I split for sleeves, and I didn't even finish the first round, and then I picked up the stitches and I knit the neckband, because I did worry that the yoke was sitting quite low, and I still feel like it's sitting quite low, but not as low as it was. The neckband has definitely helped to kind of bring it up a little bit. I ended up having to knit my neckband on a 2.75mm needle, because I've had to go down 1 needle size? Yeah, I've had to go down a needle size to get gauge on the yarn that I'm using. I had to go down two needle sizes for the colourwork. So my colourwork was on a 3mm, the rest of my jumper is on a 3.25, and my neckband was on a 2.75. So the neckband felt like it was taking forever, because it's double folded. I think it's 8 centimeters of 1x1 rib that you have to knit, and on 2.75mm needles it just felt like it was going on forever. Luckily the yarn was an absolute delight to work with, and I think it was well worth it in the end, because this neckband is really, really lovely. I think it looks beautiful, and it is really nice and squishy. But Oh, yeah, it was a lot of knitting to get that neckband on there. And it feels like it's going to be a lot of knitting now to get the body done. But it will definitely be worth it in the end. This just feels so beautiful. I just cannot wait to be able to wear it. And that's the thing that's really pushing me forward to finish it. Yeah, I just can't wait to be able to wear this. I think the colours in the yoke are just absolutely stunning. So I ended up using each colour twice. I have a fair amount of yarn left over from each of the mini skeins as well. So they were 20 gram minis. I haven't weighed them to see how much I've got left, but I've got a fair bit here. So I could definitely use them to make something else. I've not decided on what that could potentially be yet, but I could definitely use them to make something else. But yeah, I just absolutely love how this is knitting up. I did not love doing the short rows. So this pattern, to make sure that you haven't got like a big wedge of main colour stockinette at the back of the neck, the short rows are underneath the colour work, which is absolutely fine. They're just before you split the sleeves. And actually doing the short rows was fine. It was reading them in the pattern that I just found a little bit for lack of a better word. I just found it kind of hard to keep track of where I was in the pattern, because the way that the short rows are written is essentially just one big paragraph of text, and it might have just been me. I'm sure, like, to be honest, it's been test knit and everything, so I'm sure that the test knitters and everything found it fairly easy to follow, but I personally probably would have found it easier if the row numbers were in bold, or maybe if they were double spaced. It was just quite overwhelming just to see this just big bulk of text, and then to try and work out where you were. Luckily, I was reading my pattern in Adobe Reader on my laptop, so I could just highlight which row I was on and then highlight the next one as I got to it and everything, because I don't know, it just felt really difficult to see where you were in the pattern. And there's quite a lot of short rows in this, because this is the fingering weight version of the Kintra. It does come in a DK weight as well. I don't know, it was something that I found difficult to keep track of as I was knitting. I'm sure other people probably found it fine, but personally I would have preferred to have a little bit more of a break between each of the rows, or just a little bit of a check-in somewhere, like a bit of bold to have the beginning of the round, it like have row 1, row 2, row 3 in. I don't know, it just would have made it easier to read, but I'm sure other people found it fine as this went through the test knitting and everything. So yeah, other than that, it's been really easy to follow the pattern. As all of the yoke was charted and all the increases are in there, it was really easy to follow. And now I'm just going to be knitting stockinette for the body until I get to the point where the ribbing is. So I'm in the sea of stockinette. I do think that before I get to the rib on the body, I might do like maybe a couple more inches. I want to do the sleeves to see what happens to the yoke once I've got the sleeves on, because obviously it has like bounced back a bit since I put the neckband on to like bring it in a bit. But yeah, I want to see how much the sleeves then pull it down. I don't think that they're going to affect it too much, because they're not going to be that heavy, because this is quite a lightweight yarn. And obviously they're fingering weight sleeves, so there's not going to be a huge amount of bulk on there. But I do think it would be interesting to see how much it brings the yoke down, because I don't want the body to then be too long. I may even get the sleeves on, not do the ribbing on the sleeves. I might even get the sleeves on and then get to the ribbing and then stop and block it to see how it ends up looking, because I'd rather wait a couple of days for it to dry than knit both the sleeves and the body too long and have to pull them back. So yeah, that is probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this onto some tubing. I think I've got some up here. I do. So that I can try this on. I should have done this beforehand, but I'm just terribly disorganised. But yeah, I am absolutely loving this yarn. I don't often work in alpaca silk cashmere. I think I've got one other jumper that I've knit. Sorry, there's a red kite flying past the window, and I don't tend to see them quite so low out of this window. It's quite distracting. But yeah, I've got one other jumper that I've knit in alpaca silk cashmere. It's my, what's it called? Wood Anemone pullover by Sari Nordland, and I did a lace yoke in that. I also did a round yoke for that one. Apparently I only knit round yokes out of alpaca silk cashmeres. But yeah, that was a DK weight. And that was also really lovely to work with. So yeah, I don't think it's a yarn that I would use for everything. It's very slippery. And yeah, I don't think it's got a huge amount of structure because there's not a huge amount of wool content, but it is just absolutely beautiful. It's nice for a nice luxurious knit, because it feels a little bit more sort of, I don't know, it feels like liquid. It's so incredibly soft. Okay, let me move back a bit so you can actually see and bring my bag with me. So this is what it looks like on. Like I say, the yoke is pretty deep and the sleeves feel quite wide. I'm not sure if they're going to kind of, I mean, I haven't got that much in the way of length underneath the arm, so I'm wondering if they're going to kind of come in a little bit once I've like knitted a bit more length under the arm. But I did knit this in size 2 instead of size 1, so I was kind of expecting there to be a fair bit more ease. I maybe didn't account for the extra yoke depth, but I think it'll still be fine. I think it's just going to be a really nice, like, comfy, cozy extra layer, and because it's fingering weight, it's still quite sort of lightweight. It doesn't feel very heavy. So yeah, I don't know, I think it's going to be fine. I have obviously still got a way to go with the body. Oh, I forgot to mention, I am actually wearing a knitted t-shirt. This is the Colour Tip Tee by Emily Curtis, which I did actually knit up as a t-shirt. This was the first one I knit, and I used Knitting for Olive Merino in the colour Putty. It was called Putty. There we go. So yeah, that's the t-shirt that I'm wearing. So yeah, the neckband, like I say, is obviously sitting up quite high. I don't think that the sleeves are going to pull it out too much, maybe to about there. I'm hoping not too much though, because that would bring the yoke almost down to my elbows. Yeah, I'm hoping that obviously once I've got the sleeves on, this is going to kind of come in a bit. Otherwise I feel like I'm wearing a cape. I don't know, I think it's fine. Oh, I don't think it helps that I'm sitting on the needle, so that's pulling it down. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it just looks funny because I don't have the rest of the body and the sleeves on. I think it will be fine without. I'm wondering if maybe, so when you knit the yoke of this jumper, you do increases in the yoke, and then you do raglan increases afterwards in the short rows. I wonder if maybe I just didn't need those raglan increases. And I probably could have just stuck with the yoke being the way that it was, because, yeah, I don't know. I'm only 1 centimetre out of the recommended ease, so I'm not sure. I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be a really nice fit. I'm pretty sure that I had the same worry when I was knitting my peatlins, but the yoke, I'm pretty sure I was having the same problem with my peatlins when I was knitting that. I think maybe just because that was a 100% wool, it just had a little bit more structure, and because this is an alpaca silk cashmere, it's just got a lot more drape, and so it feels like it's sort of just a lot bigger. But yeah, I'm really, really loving the colours and everything. I really love how this looks. I think it suits my skin tone and everything really, really well. I just can't wait to be able to wear this. I just absolutely love it. So yeah, hopefully I can kind of fly through the stockinette fairly quickly, and then I'll be able to have this off the needles and on my body a little bit quicker. But I do need to get this off and get my other jumper on now because it's so cold in here. It's just the heating's on, I'm just cold. The neckband on this is a little bit tighter than what's going on here? There we go. Yeah, the neckband on this is a little bit tighter than I usually have my neckbands. I think maybe I just didn't bind off as loosely as I usually do. I did the same method that I usually do. I think maybe just because I was using a 2.75mm needle, I ended up being a little bit tighter on my bind off, but it still goes over my head perfectly fine, and I'm pretty sure it will stretch out a bit in blocking as well. It probably doesn't help that I've like kept my glasses on and I've got a big clip in the back of my head. So yeah. Because now I'm having problems with this one as well. Okay, so yeah, that was my Kintra, and I cast it on the 26th of January, and it has currently been on my needles for 17 days. So not too shabby, to be honest. I'm very happy with the amount of progress I've managed to make on that so far, and hopefully I will have it done by the end of February. So yeah, that was my first whip. My second whip is a new cast on, and it's living in my little Rosie Caldwell quilted bucket bag, and this is a new pair of socks for my husband. I've really gone on a mission to knit him more things and kind of run with it this year, because he's already had a pair of gloves and a jumper, and I've only had a pair of socks, and I've not managed to knit anything for my daughter yet. So yeah, he's definitely got the most finished objects so far, and now another whip as well. So after the great success of the Silly Goose socks that I knit for him for Christmas, I decided I was going to knit him another pair of colourwork socks, because he asked for some more, because he's finding them really warm and cosy, especially whilst it's a bit chilly at the moment. Just having the extra layer from the floats is definitely helping to keep his feet warm, and he really likes sort of how thick and squishy they are. So I decided to cast him on another pair of colourwork socks, and I am using the Charming Colourwork Socks book by Charlotte Stone. I got this a little while ago, and so far I have only knit one pattern out of it, so I really want to try and knit more out of this instead of buying new patterns, because there are quite a few in here that I would really love to knit. I really want to cast on, have I got a better pattern picture of them? Yeah, I really want to cast on these coffee break socks for myself, and there are just so many really lovely patterns in here. I think this was the first of her colourwork sock books. There's another one out now, and I think she's got another one coming out fairly soon as well. So yeah, I want to knit a few more out of that book before I purchase any new patterns, really. And so I am knitting the Summer Meadows socks for my husband. Now I'll show you what the pattern photo looks like for these, because mine are not really particularly floral, because I'm obviously knitting these for my husband. So this is, I'm going to try and show this to you without showing the writing on the other side. So this is what they look like in the book. So you can clearly see that they're quite floral. But I thought that this motif was actually, if you knit it in different colours, then it kind of just looks like almost like geometric motif. So I chose colours to kind of make them look much less floral and just look like geometric shapes. So I've gone for West Yorkshire Spinners for both of my yarns, and the main colour is Dusty Miller, and then the contrast colour is Rouge. And both of these were out of my stash. The Dusty Miller I actually used in his last pair of colourwork socks, the Silly Goose ones. And I think I used this to knit him up a pair of DK weight socks, and I held it double. So yeah, these are my two yarns. And I have done the ribbing. I decided not to do a contrast on the top, just because, to be honest, I couldn't be bothered. I did the 2x2 rib, and then I have done the first pattern repeat. I think I need to do 2 for the leg, and then I can do the heel. And I'm just knitting a straight size medium for him in these socks. And I think this is turning out really, really nicely. I don't think it looks particularly floral. I think it's just looking like a pattern sock. He's very happy with it. I think the red is a really nice little pop of colour against the grey. And yeah, I think I've definitely kind of succeeded in making these look a little bit more masculine than the like floral socks that are in the pattern photo. So yeah, it's really nice to have a small colourwork pattern on the go. It feels like this is absolutely flying by. This took me one evening. It really didn't take me very long at all. I then haven't picked them up again because I've been working on my Kintra, but yeah, it's just, I like the fact that now that my Kintra is at the point where I'm essentially just knitting round and round in stockinette, that's kind of become like my easy project. And then these socks have become my kind of more focused project because they're like full colour work, and then obviously I need to concentrate for the heel as well. So yeah, I am not knitting them two at a time. I did used to knit my socks two at a time when I was doing like the colourwork cuff club, because it was easy to like get the colourwork done on both of them and then just knit stockinette for the rest of the sock. But as these are colourwork all the way down, it just kind of feels like it's going to be a bit more cumbersome if I'm having to sort of untwist the yarns because I'm using the inside and the outside for the socks, and so I've got like 4 strands on the go at once. It doesn't really seem worth it, and so I'm just okay with having them doing them one sock at a time, and it works for me. I was pretty quick doing the second sock on the last pair that I knit for him, and also I'm still kind of working out how long I need to make the foot for his colourwork socks. I could measure his Silly Goose socks, but I'd quite like to get him to try this on as I get down the foot to make sure that I'm making them the right length. So yeah, I'll just knit the first one and then essentially just copy the first one when I knit the second one. So yeah, that is where I am with these. As always with Charlotte Stone's patterns, I find them really easy to work from. The chart's really easy to follow. I quite like having it in a book so that I can just sort of stick this on the sofa next to me and just kind of work through it. The pattern isn't one that I find as easy to memorise. I feel like the animal ones, because you're making an animal and you can kind of see where you are, and it's very much sort of easy to work out which row you need to do next to make it look like the one below it. That I found a little bit easier to kind of memorise, whereas this one not so much, but that might only be because I have only done it once. I think maybe once I've gotten into the foot I might be able to read where I am in the pattern a bit more without having to look at the chart, but I don't really mind if I have to have the chart open with me all the time I'm knitting this. It's not like I'm like knitting these on the go or anything. So yeah, that is where I am with these. I'm knitting them on a 2mm needle like I do for all of my colourwork. My colourwork gauge is still incredibly loose. Actually, I found that my gauge in general is just really loose at the moment, which is fine. I mean, I guess it's just how I'm knitting. But yeah, I used to be a very tight knitter and I've definitely loosened up over the years. So yeah, 2mm needle for my ribbing and then for my colourwork as well, and then I'll probably use a 2.25 to do my heel and toe to keep my gauge consistent. So yeah, that is where I am with these, and so I cast these on the 9th of February and they have currently been on my needles for 3 days. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get some more work done on those maybe this evening. The chart's really quick to knit up, so hopefully I'll be able to get to the heel and then they shouldn't be on my needles for too long and my husband can have some nice new colourwork socks. I really want to knit myself a pair of colourwork socks. Although I have loads of pairs of hand knit socks, I just always feel like I need more of them. And I feel like I would really benefit from a pair of colourwork socks at the moment because it's just so cold. So yeah, that is where I am with my husband's ones, and I'll have to pick a pattern that I want to knit for my own ones fairly soon as well. So that is all I have knitting wise. I do also have an acquisition to share with you today. So I think I have mentioned where have I put it? Oh, I think I had mentioned previously that I signed up for Skein and the Stitches yarn club this year. It's a Jane Austen themed yarn club, and I was going to be using the yarns that I get from that club to widen the blanket that I was knitting with the Advent that I got in 2024 from Skein in the Stitch as well. It was 2024, wasn't it? Yeah, the Alice in Wonderland themed Advent, and I was knitting the Northeasterly blanket by Skenanigans. I'll put a picture of it up here because I haven't got it up here. It's currently living on my chair downstairs. I managed to sew in all the ends recently, so now there are only 2 ends left in it that I need to attach the other strip, the next strips to. So yeah, it's now not fringy anymore. But the January club yarn arrived the other day and it looks like this. So this is called Prudent Grey. I can't quite remember which book this is from. I'll put it on the screen and I'll look it up. But I got the non-superwash merino, which is her natural 4-ply base, and you get 400 meters per 100 grams. And so it's not quite the kind of like pastels that I've got in the blanket at the moment, but that blanket's going to be kind of quite scrappy, and I think it's still going to work really well because it's obviously by the same dyer and it's very much kind of still in keeping with the sort of tone of the blanket. So yeah, I think this is going to look really, really nice. I'm going to start winding this up and get it knitted into the blanket fairly soon. I'm hoping to start on Sunday and have it as like my Sunday project. So yeah, that is my one acquisition. Oh, actually no, I suppose I have another one. I finally bought a chair to go in the back of this room. So obviously you can see that my old yarn stash storage has now gone, and I got a chair bed to go in here for when we have guests to stay. And I also think I might start filming the podcast over there when the days start to brighten up a bit, because otherwise I'm going to get blinded by this window. So yeah, very much enjoying what that looks like now. I think it looks a lot nicer in the background, and yeah, hopefully it will be a nice place to film later on as well. So yeah, that is everything I have to share today. Thank you so very much for hanging out with me. It's been really lovely to get back and talk about some knitting. As always, I would love to know what you guys are working on. I am in the midst of planning for spring, and I'm really, really excited about some of the ideas that I've got and some of the yarns that I've got to use up as well. So I really can't wait to sit down and film my spring making plans video for you all. So yeah, I think that's everything I've got to chat about today. So like I say, I hope you all have a lovely couple of weeks, and I will catch up with you in my next video. Bye!